Good evening, everyone. My name is Cliff Kahili. I'm city manager, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. You filled up every chair, so we are very happy that the word got out and y'all braved the weather to come and provide input on these two projects. We have a fairly robust presentation. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of engineering in this. At times we may say things that are hard to understand. Do not leave here until you understand what is going on. We have several options available to present tonight, and we want to make sure we get your input. So it's very important to us that you understand exactly what we're proposing on these options and provide that feedback. We will go through a process of surveying everyone after the meeting. And there's an option to fill that survey out tonight, or you can take it home. We are also recording this public meeting tonight. So we'll have a camera on this microphone, and then we'll have a camera on that microphone. So if you have a question, we're going to ask you to fill out a card and come to the microphone. But we just wanted to let you know that you will be on camera and that these videos will be posted online for the people who were not able to come tonight to be able to see the presentation. So if you're not comfortable getting up in front of the group and asking a question, all of the staff will be here after the meeting, and we have cards. Please feel free to reach out and ask us any questions. If you go back and talk to your neighbors and come up with 10 more questions, we are going to answer all 10 of those questions. Again, our goal tonight is to make sure you have a good understanding of the options on two different projects, and you can provide the necessary feedback so that the city council can make a decision here soon on the design of these roadways. Please make sure that you've signed in. We want to make sure that we have a good record of the number of people who are here tonight. We will also use that to get in contact with anyone should there be something further that we need to provide information on. Before I turn this over to our staff tonight, I do want to introduce our city council who are here. We have Mayor Stan Pickett, Councilmember Dan Alleman, Councilmember Robert Miklos, wave back there, Councilmember Tandy Burrows, and Bruce Archer. Thank you, Bruce. Sorry, I knew you were there. And did Mr. Noche make it in yet? Mr. Noche is on his way. We also will have Commissioner Teresa Daniel here tonight as well. She's running a little bit late as well. But again, our format tonight is we're presenting this. There are two projects, so we're going to present this in two different sections. So starting off, we're going to go with the Town East project, and so all of our presentation will be focused on that. We'll stop, we'll have a break, feel free to ask questions, and then we'll move on to the Skyline section. One last thing, we will have just a designated amount of time for questions. I'm sure there could be 2 hours of questions just on one project. So we will try to stop that so we can make sure we get the other presentation in. But like I said, the staff is well fed and they are prepared to stay as long as y'all are tonight. So again, I truly appreciate the time tonight. It is vitally important for us as city staff to hear from the public. We can only infer so much from our conversations with a few members of the public on how we design roadways, design parks, and design our city. So each of you here tonight are taking a vital step in the future of our community, and we thank you for being here. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Matt Holzappel, our Public Works Director. And again, thank you for being here.
Wow. I'm very excited. My name is Matt Holzappel. We've got a great crowd here. Thank you so much for braving the weather. It's kind of nasty out there, but you came here to participate in the democracy of this city. We do have a lot of city staff here. Our engineering staff showed up in force. It is vitally important to get your opinion here. let me kind of just go over the purpose of our public meeting, if I may. We're here to present information and to brief you citizens on options for the two projects. As our city manager mentioned, it's Town East Boulevard from US 80 to Skyline Boulevard. That's the section that is not under construction. The southern section from Skyline South to Military is currently under construction. The displays for Town East are over on this side, and we're going to handle that first in our meeting. The Skyline project will be discussed second, and all the displays are over on this side of the room. So we've done this deliberately so we don't get confused on which displays we're looking at and which options we're looking at. We're also here to answer questions. As Cliff mentioned, we're going to try and have a presentation for about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 minutes of comments and questions from you all. And then we're going to take a short break, 5-minute break to use bathrooms, or those that aren't interested in the Skyline project, if you need to go home, you can. And then we'll launch on the Skyline Boulevard project. The main reason we're here is we have options. We don't have any preconceived which one we're going to build. Okay, I'm a citizen of Mesquite. I've lived here 35 years. I intend on living here another 35. I've got my own ideas, but I'm not going to tell you those tonight. You know, you can call me if you want my opinion, but we're here to hear your ideas. We're here to get input from you. What are your preferences? Like most things, we're going to present options, and there's going to be trade-offs on these options. There's certain things we can do with one option that we can't do with others, and it has implications, pros and cons. So we're going to present those pros and cons to you on both of these projects. Our public input process, as you're probably aware, you're all here, so you've been part of that. We've mailed notices to 1,100 people, basically everybody in these neighborhoods from Town East Boulevard all the way over to South Parkway. Lots of homes got it. We had a few return in the mail, but it's been only a minor number of them, so it appears that most of you've got it. We had signs and message boards up. We've had information on your utility newsletter, the Mainstream in Mesquite, our website, Facebook, Twitter, for those of you that are into that. I'm not on Twitter, but a lot of people are. So the council really wants to get the message out because it's very important to council. It's very important to staff to hear from you. This is just some of the information that is on our website and that's been out there. Everything that you're going to see tonight is on the city website. We have a separate web page for the Town East project and another web page for the Skyline project. We're also going to take the information that we collect from the surveys that you turn in, and we're going to post that on there. Our council and our staff has a goal of full transparency. We want you to have the information so you can make an informed decision, okay? If your neighbors, if you hear things from neighbors that doesn't match what you're hearing tonight, point them to the website, because one of the things we run into constantly is rumors get started. Well, they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and a rumor mill starts, and it may not be what's actually being discussed. So you guys are going to be the keepers and the people that transmit the actual information out to your neighborhoods. You can tell your neighbors, I went to the public meeting, and by the way, here's the website links where you can do some research yourself, but this is what I found out at the meeting. This is what I found out on the website. So you are agents for change. You're agents to get the real message out there, the real information, and to do away with rumors that sometimes get started out there. The schedule that we're going to have, we have this public meeting today. As Cliff mentioned, you will have surveys handed to you as you leave today where you can actually vote on the various options for both Town East and Skyline. You're going to be given a stamped, self-addressed envelope to get it back to us. We're also going to mail out those same surveys to everybody in this neighborhood again. We'll mail 1,100 surveys out to all the homes in this area. We're also putting the survey on our website, and that will be available at 9 o'clock tonight. They're going to pop that survey up after these meetings are over. So once we get all those surveys, we're going to have a deadline, and you might want to write this down, of March 23rd to get the surveys back to the city. So that gives you roughly a month, a good 3 weeks to get the survey, consider the options, talk about it with your family, your neighbors, and vote on an option and get that information back to the city. Because then the staff has to collect that information, and we're going to present it to our city council. They're the decision makers. So we're going to take the information that we get from you and your preferences and the number of people that have certain preferences. We're going to catalog and give them that analysis, and then they're going to make the decision on which design we pursue on both the Town East and the Skyline project. We'll probably go back to the council sometime in April. It may be the first or second meeting in April. And the city council will also, I'm sure, solicit citizen input at that council meeting when we present them the survey and the information. So there'll be another opportunity and venue for you to give information and your opinions to our city council. Okay, let's start on the Town East Boulevard project. We chose to start with the Town East Boulevard project since it's the largest and longest of the two projects. Also, funding's already been identified and appropriated mostly for the Town East Boulevard project from Skyline North to US 80. And so it's going to be built first. We're going to discuss this project in two segments because there's different characteristics with different parts of the road. The first segment is US 80 to Forney. And then the second segment is Forney Road to Skyline Drive. Now, on both of these options, we were going to build a heavy-duty concrete pavement. The reason we're here is because the pavement on Forney and Skyline is in bad shape. It's failing. They were built a long time ago. The pavement thickness is, I know on Town East Boulevard, it's 7 inches thick, and it's reinforced with just a minimal amount of steel. The minimum will come back is 13-inch thick pavement, thicker subgrade, more reinforcing steel, and higher strength concrete in both Skyline and Town East. So all options that we're presenting will have a much heavier duty pavement to withstand the truck traffic that's we're experiencing out there that is causing this pavement to fail. Let's talk about the differences on the two sections that we're talking about. This is a kind of a location map. You can see from Forney North, we don't have any residential homes, Forney Road North. It's all commercial. We got industrial on one side, we got commercial kind of truck stops and things of that nature on the east side of the roadway. No residential land use whatsoever. Also, our traffic volumes in that section are much heavier. And we're going to go into traffic volumes and lane counts and things of that nature. On the southern section, the land use changes. Obviously, south of Forney to Skyline Drive on the north and east side of Town East Boulevard, we've got residential land uses. That's where you people are coming from, those 1,100 homes that are affected by this roadway. On the other side of the roadway, we have an industrial land use. Talking about the schedule for Town East Boulevard, once we decide these things, in March to September, we're going to design it. We intend to bid this project October to December. It takes about a 3-month process to comply with the state bidding regulations. And then we're going to start construction hopefully in February of 19. It's going to take roughly a year and a half to finish it. So we anticipate finishing construction in summer of 2020. Okay, segment 1. North of Forney Road. This is one segment we're really not giving you many options because it is all industrial. This segment, we have quite a bit of traffic. We've done traffic impact analysis for both Skyline Boulevard and Town East Boulevard. So we looked at what our traffic counts are in the past, historical counts, what are they today, and what are we projecting into the future as all this vacant land and vacant buildings. As you know, there's a big building that used to be the Lucent AT&T building at the corner of Skyline and Town East Boulevard. It's vacant. It's a big building. What happens when someone moves in there? What if it's a manufacturing? So we've looked at all those vacant tracts and figured out there's what we call a highway capacity manual that we look at in order to calculate with different land uses and different acreages of different types of land uses, what sort of traffic those are going to generate. We've calculated that for both Skyline and Town East Boulevard to come up with a future projected. And all this land builds out, what sort of traffic are we going to be seeing on these roadways? Rule of thumb right now, and it varies a little bit because of speeds and things like that, but each lane of traffic can generally handle about 6,000 vehicles a day. Now, it varies on the mix of trucks, how fast, what the speed limits are on those roadways, and how well intersections are very, very important because most of you know that when the congestion happens at the intersections. It's not so much at the roadway traveling between intersections, but it's at the intersections. But if you remember that, 6,000 vehicles a day, roughly, per each lane. Now, on this northern section of roadway, we have a constraint. We have a 100-foot wide right-of-way. There's only so much we can do with 100 feet, how many lanes we can put in, sidewalks, medians, things of that nature. We have a traffic volume today of around 16,400 vehicles. Pretty heavy traffic count. We're projecting that to go up in the future to as many as 20,100 vehicles. So you can see there's roughly a 4,000 to 5,000 vehicle increase that we're projecting as these other tracks develop out and start adding load to our roadway. Because of that, we think we really need 6 lanes in that section. Let me go. I think all of you have seen this display over here on the walls. I'm going to kind of focus a little bit on this actual cross section. You can see this is what we're proposing for this section. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we think this is really the only viable section from Forney up to US 80 to get those trucks out of the Union Pacific Intermodal Facility and to provide the correct number of lanes for those traffic volumes I just mentioned. So basically, this would give us a sidewalk on one side, a little bit wider trail on the industrial side. If you remember the bridge over US 80 on Town East Boulevard, the sidewalk is on the west side of the roadway. There's no sidewalk at all on the east side, so we have to move the sidewalk to that side to get over US 80. And providing a median for left turn lanes and basically just to carry the traffic. Segment 2. This is where we have some options that we want you to pay close attention to that we're going to offer up to you. This is a section from Forney, as I mentioned, down to Skyline. We have the residential land use there. As you recall, traffic drops down considerably. Our traffic counts right now is 12,600 vehicles a day in this section, and that's closer to Forney. So that's kind of, traffic seems to pick up more and more as you head north towards US 80. It starts picking up traffic from the residential neighborhood and starts peaking as you go north. But right south of Forney Road, we have that 12,600. So you can see there's a 4,000 vehicle per day difference north of Forney versus south of Forney. Mainly that traffic coming out of the intermodal and those other facilities. In 2040, future projections is 15,100 vehicles, okay? The constraints here, we're still dealing with this 100-foot wide right-of-way. We have lower traffic volumes, but we have this dichotomy. We have residential land use on one side, the east side, north side. We have the industrial land use on the west-south side. So the options we have, we're going to have option A. Remember those options. This option is to do something a little bit different than what's out there now. Right now we have 3 lanes in each direction, 6 lanes total. You saw that on that previous cross section. This option would be to reduce that lane count, 1 lane in each direction. So you'd have 2 lanes on either side of a median. What we would do with that extra room that we're getting from eliminating those 2 extra lanes is we'd take the roadway and shove it as far away from the residential homes as we possibly can, shoving it towards that industrial land. This would have some pros and some cons, and you can see this. Number 1, it moves those heavy trucks away from the homes. That reduces vibration, and we have gotten lots of complaints about vibration and noise, especially from that first and second tier homes closest to Town East Boulevard. We've had to go out there with sound meters, and what we have found is just a matter of 10 feet makes a big difference on sound, okay? So it would dramatically reduce the vibration and noise. It gives us room also to put some amenities in there. We would propose to put in a 12-foot trail next to the homes. Gives us room for some nice landscaping, some trees. We could meander the trail in and out of the landscaping and trees to provide a nice amenity to that neighborhood. There's another thing that it would probably do. Traffic, when it has wide open, lots of lanes to go, it tends to drive faster. You see that in your own neighborhoods. When there's lots of cars parked along the side of the road, you drive in your neighborhood, you only got one lane, what do? You kind of, ooh, this is tight. I'm going to slow down a little bit here, okay? It's a natural inclination of drivers. As you reduce lane counts, drivers tend to drive slower. There's lots of literature on it, and we think it would reduce the overall speeds we have out there. We have a bad enforcement. We have complaints also on this roadway, Town East, presently for speed, people going over the posted speed limit, and it happens a lot. The only way we can fix that is constant enforcement, which we're not able to do. We do put officers out there. We put radar trailers out there. You've seen them out there. It slows them down for a time, but you don't, because the roadway is wide, it's straight, they're just going to naturally speed up as soon as that radar trailer, as soon as that police officer is off the road. Designing roads for slower speeds means you really need fewer lanes and make it look a little bit tighter so people are a little bit less comfortable driving that section of roadway. Of course, dropping a few lanes, it's a little bit lower cost. So as taxpayers, I'm a taxpayer here too, it saves the taxpayers a little bit money. So looking at this, again, this is the display. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but we have blow-ups over here. I'm going to focus in on just this cross section. You can see here, this is this Plan A. All these options, both this one and the next one we'll present to you, which is basically build it back like it is. We're going to build a concrete embossed screening wall along the residential. Now, these are, you think in concrete, but these are newer type where they paint them, and if you've been up to like Academy Sporting Goods, behind the Academy Sporting Goods, they've built an 8-foot tall, not a 6-foot tall like the current fences. It's an 8-foot tall, thick, it's about 5 to 6 inches thick, screening wall. It has a stone appearance embossed on it. It's painted. It looks very aesthetically pleasing, and it's almost bulletproof. And that would be built with either option on Town East along the residential homes. So that's a given. But this option also gives us room for a large buffer. It moves from 10 foot, the roadway from 10 foot away from the property line to, you can see, 28 foot. So it almost triples that distance between the homes and their property line and the actual roadway. And because it goes from 10 foot to 28 foot, we have room for plenty of landscaping, heavily landscaped. We have room for a trail, and it has those other advantages. Let's go on to segment 2. This is option B. This is basically build it back the way it is. Of course, we'll build it back thicker pavement. We're still going to put up the concrete screening wall on this option, so those are common to both. But for those who want to go fast and just are only concerned about moving traffic, this is an option. It has more lanes, so obviously we are going to move traffic faster and we'll be able to move more traffic. We don't think we need it, but for those of you who are concerned with that, this is the option. Disadvantages, as I mentioned, is kind of the opposite of option A. It does put, it keeps the roadway close to the homes. They still are going to have to put up with the vibration, the noise, less pedestrian safety because the sidewalks are very close to the pavement. Doesn't give us room for landscaping. Well, we will, of course, sod the area between sidewalk and the property line and the screening wall. We'll put in nice Bermuda sod and so forth, but there's not going to be room for trees or things of that nature. We do anticipate this is going to give us higher speeds on that roadway, which is an advantage if you want to move traffic, but some people don't want those. We do have lots of complaints on speeding, and it has a higher cost. Okay? This is the option, again, showing what that looks like. These options, because we're limited with a 100-foot right-of-way, we can do one or the other. We can move the road if we eliminate lanes and it gives us that extra room, or we can build basically what we have. Okay? And with that, I think I did that pretty quick, yeah. So we'll have more time for public input. That's what we're here for. What we'd like you to do, we're going to take this time to cue up people at the mics. What we'd like to do is people that want to speak at the mics, if you'd come up and kind of, Corey, if you could kind of help us with this. If you'd line up at the mic, you'll notice we do have a URL here. With the information, there's separate websites. If you'd copy that down, it is on the flyers as well. We're going to ask you to kind of limit your comments to be succinct and concise in what you're trying to say so that we can hear from everybody that wants to speak. Now, these comments are just related to the Town East project at this point. They're not related to the Skyline Boulevard project. We will have a time after that presentation for that as well. We ask that when you come up to the podium that you state your name and address. For the record, as it was mentioned, this is being video recorded out there. And again, if you keep your comments brief and concise so that we can get everybody's comments. Okay. With that, go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you so much for having us. My name is Willie Brown. My address is 1405 Oxford Place. I live in the Castle Ridge addition. Been there since 85, so somewhere around 33 years also. My question to you is, first of all, can you re-verify in each of those proposals a sound barrier wall will be in both of those options?
Okay, there's been a lot of talk about a sound wall. Screening walls and sound walls are not the same.
Okay.
We're going to be building an 8-foot tall screening walls. If you see the sound walls that are being built like along LBJ Freeway, right now north of like La Prada Drive, as you drive north on LBJ Freeway, TxDOT is building very tall sound walls. Sound walls typically have to be individually designed per neighborhood. They tend to be 12, 14-foot tall and higher, and they don't work very well if they have penetrations. We got a lot of penetrations because we have streets that have to go through that wall. And sound is just like water. It flows around things like that. So what we're intending to build with all these options is a screening wall. It'll be taller. Right now the fence that's out there, it's wooden.
Right.
It's got brick pilasters.
Right.
It's kind of,
right.
It's not a very durable construction. We're going to take all that down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to build an 8-foot tall, so it's 2 foot taller than what's currently there. It's going to be concrete, nice looking, very durable material. Like I said, it literally is almost bulletproof for handguns. And it will have some sound attenuation.
Right.
Okay, don't get me wrong. It
Right.
will attenuate sound somewhat, but it's not specifically designed for that. We actually have run numbers on a sound wall. If we actually built something like that tall, it adds about $1 million to the project. It goes from about a $300,000 screening wall to close to $1 million or more sound wall. And again, we've never built, and we don't think it's really going to be effective because of the number of streets that go through that wall.
Well, that's
good question, Doug. Great question.
That's excellent, because that, from a parent standpoint, I think that we definitely need some type of improvement from that standpoint. Okay, along those same lines, on that same street, there's an entryway for Bradford. It's the first entryway from the Castle Ridge addition. My question to you is, with the road improvements, will that road continue into the neighborhood, which is Bradford, given amount of feet? Because that entryway is in a disaster as well, going into the Castle Ridge addition. The reason why I'm saying that is, on Town East Boulevard, there's maybe 3 entryways into our neighborhood community. Again, Castle Ridge, and then if you got that barrier, the field in between the next neighborhood, where there's not a retainer wall or a sound wall or anything there in that neighborhood, right. There's only maybe 3 entryways, and I'm interested about when town East is repaired, will it go into the neighborhood somewhat and also make that area more presentable?
All the approaches for those entry streets into the neighborhood will be reconstructed. Typically, we go 50, 60. We look at the pavement and see how far.
Right.
We have to have good pavement to tie into.
Right.
So we generally go in a distance. And now, I can't say if it's going to be 100 foot or 60 foot, but generally the entire approach where the radiuses are, that will all be reconstructed, and we'll go to some degree within the neighborhood so we get sound. We're connecting into sound pavement out there. There's also talk. Our council right now is very interested in neighborhood identity. So more than likely on this screening wall, what we will do is we'll put name plaques out there identifying what neighborhoods. You mentioned your Castle Ridge neighborhood. That's
Right.
the name of the subdivision. We can design custom name plates that go on that
Right.
entry feature. So when someone comes to visit, you can tell them what street you're on, turn on, Bradford, it'll say Castle Ridge neighborhood on the wall right there. And so we want to give the neighborhood some identity. We've done that on other screening wall projects.
And one last thing, can you verify me? You said that the start date was is that 2019, a year away? Or can you verify, you said that there were some discussions about getting, the proposal finalized and so forth. But I want to make sure I understood that for our start date.
Correct. We're not finished with the design.
Jeez.
We've done a lot of design on the utilities, underground stuff, drainage, underground stuff. We've collected a lot of survey information, taken soil borings and so forth, but we haven't finished the design. So we're at the point we have to have your input, and we have to have direction from City Council on which of these design options to finalize the design. So we think we'll be finalized with that sometime in October, November, go into our bidding process, which takes about 3 months. Hopefully have contracts awarded and executed so we can start construction in January of 19. It's going to take roughly a year to year and a half. So the road will be under construction all of 2019, and part of 2020 till we get it finished, sir.
I sure thought we were further along. So we're still about a year out before we start. Now,
Yes, sir.
the grade level you mentioned about the concrete. Now, you mentioned heavy duty, but can you expand on what we consider, blacktop, concrete? Is it graded for heavy equipment? And again, aren't there grade levels? Because again, that road gets constantly tore up. I've been there for 33 years and I've seen it, I've seen it immaculate to where it is now. We're just doing patchwork.
Yeah.
And we're at wit's end over in the neighborhood.
It's in bad shape, and this weather we've had the last couple of weeks has made it even worse.
Thank you.
The concrete that's going in will be 4,000 PSI. That probably doesn't mean a lot, but it's a heavy strength concrete. It will be heavily reinforced with reinforcing steel. When we rebuilt Forney Road going into the intermodal, we put in 13-inch thick concrete there, and it was designed for heavy loads, these industrial loads for fully loaded tractor-trailer rigs, and a heavy vehicle count on those tractor-trailer rigs. It's our intention, just like the section that's underway right now under construction south of Skyline, that's going in 13 inches thick as well with a subgrade prepared under it. So we feel it will hold up this industrial traffic that we're experiencing out there.
My name is Brad Shelton. I'm at 1409 Springbrook down the street here since 1971.
Great.
You've made it clear that one option is more expensive than the other. Can you tell us how much difference we're talking about?
I could look that up. It's not all that much because we're adding the trail on one option versus 2 lanes of concrete. It's roughly, I think the numbers we looked at, it was something around $1 million or so, something in that neighborhood. We're Town East Boulevard, the current estimates we have right now is around, again, depends on option, but it's right around $15 million for the roadway.
All right, so we're looking at 7-8% difference?
Something in that neighborhood, yes, sir.
My concern is that, the money is well spent. We have a lot of roads in this city that need attention, and well, that's it for now. Thank you.
Very good, sir. Thank you for your input. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Rose Grimsley, 1713 Woodlawn Parkway, here in the Skyline area. I've lived here 3 years. My question and concern is that I hear you talking about A and B, and one is a little more expensive and one isn't. But with the growth in the area and the focus on trying to get more industry here, is it realistic to narrow a roadway that's going to lead into our industrial area? And also, are you going to be back in 10 or 15 years saying, oops, we've got to expand this now because of the amount of traffic? Because more industry means more citizens. Thank you.
I'll answer that. We did conduct, as I mentioned, a traffic impact analysis. So we're looking at trends on the roadway past. We looked at traffic counts all the way back from 1999 through the present day. Then we've calculated the amount of traffic, the various undeveloped or vacant land uses, like that big building at the corner of Skyline and Town East. If those become operators, if that vacant building gets an industry or a manufacturing facility in there. We've looked at all the vacant land uses either under construction or that are vacant and projected what those would generate. And it does add traffic. And we've calculated, but even with that traffic in this section, I gave the numbers previously, but we believe that we still can handle it. Here's the numbers for Segment 2. Right now, 2017, we have 12,600 vehicles a day. And we also looked at peak counts and things during the congested peak rush hours. And we think that's going to, with the additional land uses, go up to around 15,100 vehicles. So there will be an increase. There's no question there'll be an increase. However, we do think that 15,100 can easily be accommodated on a 4-lane road, especially if we get the intersections right. If you examine closely the options, the long scrolls on the walls for each option, you'll notice at the intersections, we add lanes there so that there's right turn lanes, left turn lanes, things of that nature, so we can move. We add additional lanes at those congested areas. And the key to getting the traffic through this road and preventing congestion is the intersections.
Thank you. I just think that, to me, it doesn't seem reasonable to take and make something smaller when you're growing. And the projections sound great, but that's just a concern of mine, and I just wanted to bring it up for other people to think about too. Thank you.
That's a great comment.
Hi, my name is Gavin Newman, 2313 Monticello Drive. I was born there, so it's been there for a while. I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing here in terms of fewer lanes, actually. One of the things that I worry about is not whether or not the city has the money to build it now, but whether or not the city has the money to maintain it in 20 years or beyond, or whenever there's a bond package and they need to do something. So I think it's really encouraging to see, again, options with fewer lanes. I was going to ask, has there been any economic analysis that looks at maintenance cost and time and overtime, and are you looking at that in relation to each of those options in terms of what does a 6-lane road cost over time versus a 4-lane road? And I guess there's another point too. Your traffic analysis, I know, can take into account what's happening now, but just for us all to think about, we don't know what cars are going to do in 10 years. I hope to not have a car in 10 years, and I hope it drives me. And so I don't know if that's something y'all are thinking about, or if that's something that you can even plan for at this point. But what I really like to know is, what do these things cost over time, and can we expect to pay for them in 20 years?
We do actually have an engineer here, Christina Hickey. We actually have set up a new division in Public Works for asset management, where we look at just that question. Now, we don't break it down to an individual roadway, but of course, every lane mile of roadway has a cost to maintain. Building more lanes than you need has, like you say, a long-term economic consequence. Right-sizing roads is really important, not overbuilding, because it does add with time. I don't have those numbers on what it costs per lane mile, but that is a factor that we have, and we know every lane mile costs money, not just to build, but for the length of its life. Absolutely, sir. And you kind of mentioned what the future brings. We're kind of in a weird place right now. The world's changing. People my age have a tough time grasping it, but self-driving cars are just around the corner. So there's some of them on the road right now. I just had a seminar that in Dallas right now, there are self-driving cars right now on the road. You don't know it because they're experimental, but they're here right now. That may change the way we view transportation. We know that manufacturing, a lot of this area is industrial that we're talking about. Manufacturing uses use less and less people because of automation. That Lucent factory, when it was in full bore, had over 3,000 employees at one time. It was a 24/7 operation with lots of people, lots of parking out there. We've talked to industrial users, manufacturing companies, and the highest, when the total count that they're talking about adding into that building is 1,200 employees if they build all phases. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen, but we see lower and lower, it takes fewer and fewer employees nowadays to manufacture widgets, and we think that trend's going to continue. I can't see it turning around any place, so
Yeah.
they're waving me on
Great.
to
Thanks.
hurry up here, so. Thank you so much. Very good points.
Very
Yes, sir.
quickly then, Johnny Yates, 1425 Oxford Place. I do want to thank you for the amount of planning you guys and your team have done. It's very apparent. As we look at the mall and the planning that's gone into it, particularly the detail of what traffic flow will be like, but not only that, but the aesthetic side of it, the part where we live, the parks, the linear parks, those improvements are major improvements to our neighborhoods, to every one of us. And I know me as a citizen here and everyone else here, thank you. Thank you for keeping us in mind with that. On a note, though, as we begin to look at this and the construction starts, I know you've mapped it out in a long term of roughly a year and 9 months.
Right.
As we look at that, and hopefully by going to a lesser lane and quantity detail, we have the capacity to expedite schedules, to have continuous work schedules with little to no downtime, where we've got dead roads out there with construction, traffic barriers all over the place with nobody working on it. That is a frustrating feature that we see everywhere in the city, Mesquite included. As all this continues and the work on this goes, whether it's Town East or Skyline, construction goes up, barriers go up, traffic's rerouted, half of it's closed, traffic is pushed, people are frustrated. When all this
Absolutely.
happens, people start bailing and rushing through neighborhoods. It creates safety hazards to all of us. One thing that we would ask you guys to do is cooperate, work with the City of Mesquite Police, bring this to attention, and to have extra enforcement available, or a little bit more than construction zone. Bring awareness. Kids play in the streets, and it's going to get worse. But
I think those are excellent points. Our council's initiated a program. You've probably seen the bumper stickers. Drive like
you live here.
like you live here, like your kids live here. Okay,
That's right.
And so they're very aware of that. We have those sorts of complaints during construction projects all the time.
Yes.
We are on the hotline to our police enforcement unit, and they are very, very responsive to us. We have a whole speed enforcement unit in our police department, and they cooperate with the engineering and traffic engineering division intimately because we dispatch them almost every day, one location or another.
One last comment, and back to Willie's comment on the screen wall. While it is not a sound attenuation wall, an 8-foot screen wall does help.
Absolutely.
Definitely does. The one thing we would ask for special attention to be put to, though, is the design of that wall, the proper piers that go into it, so that the expansive soils that we have, that we deal with on a daily basis, that wall doesn't become a victim of it.
The walls that we're building now, I think if you drive around town, I can tell you there's one on Cartwright Road, just to the, let me get this, east of LBJ Freeway on the north side of the road. We've just reconstructed it. It's a very nice looking wall, aesthetically pleasing, and like I said, we've actually had cars crash into that wall in the last year, and it stopped them dead. So it did damage the wall. We had to replace a panel, but it stopped the car. So they're pretty stout walls, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much.
By the way, I might mention that we do intend on putting the traffic impact analysis on our website as well. So if you're interested on traffic counts, they're pretty technical documents, but if you're willing to wade into it, or if you want to sit down with me or our traffic engineer, we're glad to do that. We want to get you all the information you can get to make an informed decision. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Sean Eller, Pecan Bend, 3632 Colby Circle. 21-year resident. The concerns that I have is I watched my entire area between Skyline and Town East go from nothing but the rail yard traffic to being developed into all the warehouses that's brought in all the other traffic. And the big building you were talking about on Skyline has transferred into 3 or 4 different facilities, and I think now at this time is dormant and being used by UPS and the trucking company, or the vehicles, I think. But like you said, once that takes action, that's going to bring in all that other traffic over there. Any future business coming in along Town East, I foresee being more warehousing or facilities that are going to bring in more trucking.
Yes, sir.
And I hope that Mesquite stays a non-truck stop city, because, overnight staying truck stop city like we've pushed out over the last years. But if that becomes an issue, that'll be a whole different issue, a whole different ball of wax. But as far as the construction, you and I spoke about it, and I don't see any reason that this doesn't turn out to be a beautiful thing. But I know nobody's probably thought about it, but if you could put it in your thoughts about maybe posting that all commercial vehicles right lane only, because everything they do up Town East or up Skyline is going to be a right-hand turn only.
Yep.
Except for where they need to turn in the intersection. And that would limit excessive damage to the outside lanes for future. And also allow open traffic to whatever lanes are open on the outside, which I agree with the other guy.
We'll look at that. That's not a bad.
About leaving it full. We might as well go ahead and do it all big now instead of waiting, because it's going to have to be done later. It will have to be done later.
We'll definitely, that's an interesting idea. We'll put that on your survey, and we'll
Sure.
definitely look at what we can do with signage and enforcement in that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Hello, my name is Mandy Starks, and I live on 1316 Meadowcrest Drive, and I'm also a teacher here at Rugel.
Oh.
Yes. And I am requesting that possibly, we have a park right there on 40 that is not utilized as much, because it's really hard to get to for parents that have strollers that want to walk to there. It's very hard. So I would ask that you keep that in mind when you are creating the walkway, that make it better, kid-friendly, stroller-friendly for people to get to. And the playground equipment that is there, it may not be part of it, but it is for younger kids, which is great, but maybe add in some older kids where it can be a place that all families can go to. And I have a little leadership club here at Rugel Elementary, and we would like to see if possibly we could help design the trailway and maybe have a say-so into it. Into helping with the ideas. So.
Make
It's
sure you
their
leave us
neighborhood.
your name. I want to point out, if you look at the Town East one, the plan, I guess it's A, option A, with the wider trail along the residential. If you look at that thing, we're bringing a trail through that Town East Forney Park there, and that trail's going to be extended all the way to the parking lot that's kind of on down near the South
Right.
Parkway
Okay.
end. And that trail will be wide, 12-foot wide,
Okay.
is what our thoughts are right now, and it should be good for both walking, people with strollers, wagons, bicycles, things of that nature. So it's meant to be an amenity to the park and to connect you to that park facility that's out there.
I don't think it's utilized as much as it
Our
could.
city manager, before he became city manager, is was the Director of Parks and Recreation. So parks are near and dear to his heart. So we
So-
will make sure that connection's made.
So who do I talk to about my leadership club helping? Is that you? That you? Okay, what's your name?
Cleve
I'll find
Kahili.
you. I promise.
Just
Okay,
put it,
thank you.
when we hand out the surveys at the end of this, there's a place on the end of the survey for your comments. Just write it in there, and we'll make sure Cliff gets your information, and
Julie
we
is
incorporate.
part of my leadership club, so I
That's
had to
awesome.
ask. Thank you.
That's awesome. Do we have any others? Sir, you have a few more minutes here. We're coming up on 7:50.
My name is Larry Casal. I live at 1309 Golden Grove. I've been here about 30 years or so. This is a great project. It's been long in coming. But I'm more concerned about what happens between now and the time the construction starts. And I'm very disappointed. I'm very concerned about the condition of the repairs being made in the interim. And, I keep a close eye on the distance between Golden Grove and Town East. On 80. And I see the patchwork guys out there. I see the concrete guys out there. I see the stuff continue to deteriorate. The concrete, you don't have a good base for the concrete, so I think you pretty much stopped trying to make concrete repairs. The asphalt repairs don't seem to be a consideration as far as the drivability. They'll put a pillow of asphalt that is not tapered. I see places in the various past where they have actually paid attention to how the car approaches, gets on, and gets off of a patch. And they'll feather the edges. They'll keep the thing low. But more recently, it looks like they're throwing a cow patty down. I can show many areas where they seem to halfway do the job. And if they had gone just a little bit further, if they spent a little bit more time, for the consideration of the drivers. And I have had conversations with the guys doing repairs out there. I've had all sorts of excuses, that, maybe they ran out of asphalt. We're just here to cover up the rebar. We're not concerned about how well the car rolls over it. But you go downtown East right now, and the pickup truck is bouncing all over the road. I've got 3 vehicles. 2 of them are performance vehicles, and 1 of them's a pickup truck. And I hit every chug hole. I hit every cow patty. I hit every, pillow that they've flopped down, and with no consideration for the drivability. So that's all I had to say.
I'll give you my word, I'll go out there and personally look at that. Oop. Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Pat Owen, 2413 Monticello Drive, and I've been here about 21 years. Since we're looking at this project between Town East and Town East and Forney, I hope no truck drivers are here, but I get very, very upset when I am trying to get to church or somewhere on time, and I come down out of my neighborhood onto Peachtree, and there's 2 trucks that are taking up all 3 lanes so they can turn to head toward LBJ. If we get this project done to where we're going to do this heavy-duty concrete stuff over here,
Yes, ma'am.
can we not tell these truck companies to not send their trucks? They can still get to the same place. Yeah, it might take them another 5 minutes, but that tears down the road over there. So eventually, our next project is going to be Town East from Gross Road to, Peachtree or whatever. It's an ongoing thing with the trucks. I know we need the industry to, help us grow, but can we kind of keep them over there and cars stay over here or something? Because it's really, and it's not just because I get upset because I'm late, but it's the fact that it tears down the road so bad.
There's no question. Trucks do the majority of the damage. I haven't verified this, but I've heard numbers like one truck is worth 3,000 vehicles. And if it's a fully loaded truck, that's probably pretty close. So we can look at taking things to council to designate truck routes and non-truck routes. The problem with that is if they're going to a destination, they do have the right to go on those roads, even if it's not a designated, if it's along the route to their destination. And then it's an enforcement issue. So certainly, I don't want the trucks on my roads any place except where they need to be, the heavier duty pavements. It's just a constant issue to try and enforce those type of regulations and train the truckers that come frequently to the city of Mesquite what's allowable and what's not.
And
But that is a great suggestion.
I'm sorry. The last thing is this other gentleman just said about the filling in the potholes. Last week when we were having all those torrential rains, I got stuck in traffic coming from Galloway toward 80, and they were repairing potholes on the side coming from Old Mesquite toward 80. And I mean, it was pouring down rain, and they were out there pouring that asphalt stuff to kind of stop, and then the next car come around and pew. And when you drive over that stuff anyway, it kind of gets on your car. This was going 3 and 4 feet high in the air, and it was like, why are they doing this in the rain? Why don't they close down and go back to the shop and try again tomorrow when it's a little bit drier? I was just, I'm not a road person. I don't build roads. I don't want to build roads. But a little bit of common sense should go a long way.
But let me explain that to you. I understand, and believe me, they're frustrated too. The problem is when a bad pothole occurs, and it's reported, we literally have to act, because if a car goes through there and it's been reported and we haven't taken action, rain or shine, then the city has a liability and we can get claims against the city. Believe me, we'd rather not, because we know it's a futile exercise, but we have to respond to every reported pothole. It doesn't matter what type of weather. And so we attempt to do our best with the understanding it's probably not going to last very long, and we're going to be back again. But we have no choice from a liability and legal standpoint. If I could just wave them off and say, it's raining, guys, don't worry about it, we're going to do something else, they'd love for me to tell them that, and it would alleviate a lot of your frustration and ours.
Before I retired, I dealt with attorneys and court thing. I was in court all the time because I was in the insurance business and, big bad insurance companies. But does that defense really help you in court? Well, we got a complaint, but we were out there fixing that pothole. Never mind that we put it in, it came out. We put it in, it came out. Does that really help you in your defense?
It actually does. It means we were attempting.
Lawyers are still getting dumber. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got 758, real short comment, and then we're going to have to move on to the next one.
Charlie Baker, 1713 Huntington, 75149. And I just wanted to reiterate on the traffic congestion by narrowing the lanes would eventually create. And then once we restrict traffic flow there, they're going to start looking for cut-throughs. And as we all already know, they cut through on South Parkway on a regular basis. So try and keep that in mind if anybody's thinking about, it's going to be better if we make it traffic narrow down. The other thing I wanted to ask about, you've talked about Forney a lot, but I've heard no mention of any repairs to the Forney Road from Town East to South Parkway.
That is not on our schedule as far as overlaying it. Again, we'll keep up with the daily potholes and the reported maintenance issues out there, but at present, we don't have anything scheduled. That section of roadway is actually been designed at one point, way back in the 80s when I first got here. We actually got the plans on the shelf, but there's just not a lot of traffic on.
It's time to dust them off. because it's
There's
past-
just, we have a lot of other needs is what, but I understand what you're saying. I'm going to close out. First of all, I want to thank everybody that stood up and in front of the mic and gave us your comments. We're going to take a short break, but before we do that, I'd like anybody who's going to leave, we're going to handle after the break. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to do a stopwatch type thing. There is restrooms right down this hall here for those that have to use restrooms. But do not leave this building before you get a copy of the survey. And there is places to vote for both Town East Boulevard, which we've discussed, and Skyline that we are going to discuss. And there is a stamped, addressed envelope, so you can get that back. Just if you don't want to take it, it is going to be online, and we will mail those to everybody in this neighborhood that received the original mailing as well. Okay, for those of you who are leaving, I can't thank you enough for coming here tonight and listening to this discussion and the presentation. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll jump on Skyline. Okay, we'd like to focus this second hour on Skyline Drive. This is a little bit more complicated because we have more options for you, okay? Skyline's a little bit different animal, quite a bit different animal than Town East Boulevard. Traffic volumes are... Let me back up here. Okay, Skyline Drive. We have 4 options that we're going to be offering to you tonight, and I'll go into detail on each of these options, pros and cons. They basically are reconstructing what you see out there now. I'm going to, however, on all 4 options, listen to this kind of carefully because it's common to all 4 options. We are going to build that same screening wall, 8 foot tall, to separate the residential from the roadway. It'll basically go between the alley and the roadway, the whole length of the residential properties out there. That's common to all 4 options. So we're going to do that with all of them. The 4 options are reconstructed as its existing configuration, basically the roadway, 2 lanes each direction, very wide, 60-foot wide median. So it pushes the roadway one side all the way up against the industrial. On the other side, it pushes it close up against the residential homes. Basically kind of what you see now, with the exception we'll put in that screening wall. Option A is 3 lanes. It's taking out the median and shoving the roadway as far, as close to the industrial buildings as we can get it. So it gives us a very wide buffer, green area to do all sorts of things. We'll go into detail on that in that green buffer. Option B is 4-lane. It's a kind of a hybrid of option A. We're adding an additional lane there, but we're still shoving the road as far as we can to the south. We just had an elected official show up, Dr. Daniel, and if you'll stand up, she's our county commissioner in this area, Teresa Daniel. Thank you so much, ma'am. And also one of our council members, Mr. Greg Noche. There he is, right there. We not only got a great turnout from the neighborhood, but we have a great turnout from our council and elected officials. Very, very impressive. They care about this neighborhood and these projects. 4-lane, undivided with amenities. So very similar to option A, but adding an additional lane, shoving it as close to the industrial uses on the south side of Skyline Boulevard. Because we are adding that additional lane, it reduces that green buffer area by about 12 feet. And we'll go into exact dimensions on that. Option C is kind of a hybrid of the existing option. It's basically, again, shoving that roadway to the south as much as we can, but it does add a median between 2 lanes in each direction. So it's more like a conventional roadway, almost like what we see with that option B on Town East Boulevard, with 2 lanes in each direction, a narrow median, not the big 60-foot wide median we currently have, and again, a buffer between the homes and the roadway, but again, it's reducing it even further in that case. So we'll go into that. Now, let's talk about traffic volumes for just a second. We did a traffic impact analysis for Town East Boulevard. We have done one for Skyline Boulevard as well. Right now, traffic volumes are very low on Skyline. We only get, our current traffic volumes are 4,844 vehicles, roughly, say, slightly under 5,000 vehicles a day. Remember our rule of thumb, 1 lane of traffic will carry up to 6,000 vehicles a day. Right now, we've got 4 lanes of traffic, so potentially we could carry somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 to 24,000 vehicles on Skyline. We've got 5,000 vehicles right now. We have done projections, and because of the property near Peachtree, that floodplain area and the area that's outside the floodplain where they've talked about building a big medical facility there, we've calculated those numbers, calculated in numbers for the building that's under construction on Skyline and Peachtree. It's another close to 500,000 square foot industrial building that's just breaking ground right now. And also putting full employment and bringing back that AT&T building, putting 1,200 employees in that building. Because of all that land that's undeveloped or underutilized right now, it almost doubles our future traffic count. So we're projecting in 2040 the traffic count jumping from just under 5,000 to 8,300 vehicles. But still a very manageable number of vehicles. And that's with everything in the area built out and no vacant land remaining. So kind of remember those. Speeds, what we're seeing on Skyline, it's kind of a straight road. It's relatively flat except for the potholes here and there. But it's kind of a racetrack, and as you can imagine, it's currently signed for 40-mile-per-hour limit. What we're finding is our 85th percentile, 85% of the people are driving at real close to 40 or over. On the Town East side of it, our average 85th percentile speed is 43 miles per hour. So you can see these straight runway roads, lots of lanes, lots of median and space where they don't feel confined and don't have to really watch much. People are using this as a racetrack right now. So we have an enforcement problem. We get lots of complaints from the citizens out there about speeding, and you see the radar trailer and the police out there trying to get these people to slow down frequently. One way to kind of bring those speeds down is, again, narrow the number of lanes, kind of restrict things, put it all together, get rid of a median, things of that nature. We think will bring speeds down. We mentioned the screening wall. We also mentioned that it will have a heavy-duty industrial type pavement thickness, just like the Town East Boulevard project. We don't want to be back in 25, 30 years rebuilding this road because the roadway broke down again. So that's common to all 4 options. We have a very wide right-of-way, 124 foot, as I mentioned. We have low traffic volumes. Again, this is a lot like Town East. We have that mixed use, industrial, heavy uses on the south side. On the north side of the roadway, we have the residential use. So kind of an incompatible land use. We want to separate those as much as possible. Okay. This is actually in the survey is lettered option D, but it's basically the option to rebuild it more or less as you see it now. The disadvantages, let's go through pros and cons. These are all going to be on your survey as well. Traffic closer to homes. That comes with noise. It comes with vibration levels for those homes adjacent to the roadway. It doesn't give us also the area green space to develop trails and things of that nature. It puts all that green space in this very wide median where it's very hard for the people that live adjacent to it to utilize. So, you don't really want a trail going down the median of a roadway. You have to cross a bunch of traffic to even get to that trail. So it really doesn't make it a very useful green space if we put all that land in the median as you currently see out there. It's not going to give us room to do really any amenities next to the residential part. And again, as we mentioned, this is probably going to continue the high speeds that we're currently experiencing on the roadway. However, if you don't want any change, you're just trying to move traffic and you're trying to move it as quickly as possible, this is probably the option that you want to implement. So it's kind of the no change option. You've seen, this is on one of the screens over here on my left, your right. You can see that's the one closest to me that has the big, wide median over there. I'm going to kind of break it down. This is what it looks like currently. This was basically what we'd rebuild it. And we would build that screening wall, as we mentioned, between the alley that's behind the homes out there and the new pavement. I'm going to go on to option A. Option A is kind of the most radical change from what we currently see. This is 3 lanes shoving the roadway as far to the south next to the industrial homes as possible. It doesn't have a median. So what we're going to do, if you look at the long linear ones for the option A, what you'll see is we have a continuous left turn lane in the middle, through traffic lanes on either side of that, one in each direction. We would build auxiliary right turn lanes at the heavy movements into industrial properties and into the major streets that feed into the residential area. So you'd be able to get off the roadway, not block a through lane if you're making a heavy right turn into one of those streets or entrances into the industrial area. So we think it's a very efficient design. We think there's plenty of lanes there to carry the traffic both today and what we're anticipating in the future in 2040. And it gives us a largest separation between the travel lanes and the homes. It increases that buffer size between the alley right-of-way line and the pavement up to 77.5 feet. That's a lot of pavement, or a lot of green area. We can do a lot in that green area. It actually lends itself to the building almost of a linear park where we can put a winding trail through there, lots of trees and landscaping, and potentially even some park furniture like benches and things of that nature in that area, because there's plenty of separation. You're not going to endanger anybody, especially children that might be using those type of amenities. So this is the option that gives the maximum green space between the homes and the pavement, maximum room for amenities, lower speeds, as we mentioned, as we kind of push traffic together, we expect lower speeds. It also has the lowest cost. Disadvantages is it has fewer lanes. If you're all about moving traffic and you don't want the least amount of congestion, this might have slightly more congestion than any of the other options. I'm going to click away. This is kind of a cross section or a plan view of that. Again, that's on these boards over here. Zooming into the cross section, you can see it gives the old roadway is kind of in a dashed line on your left there. You can see we're pushing the new roadway right almost up to 10 foot from the south right-of-way line. That gives us that gigantic buffer, lots of room for trees, trails, and other amenities. Okay, option B, kind of a little bit different, a little bit twist. So on option A, adds another lane. Remember, 3 lanes option A. This goes to 4 lanes, but they're 2 through lanes. And so because we have 2 through lanes, we would not build those right turn bays into the major streets and drive entrances into the industrial area. You'd have 1 lane in each direction. Of course, we would flare it at the major intersections, add additional lanes at Town East and Peachtree ends. This has many of the advantages of option A. It still pushes traffic away from the homes, not quite as much. Instead of a 77.5-foot buffer, it drops it down to 65.5. So roughly you lose 12 foot of that buffer. May not seem like much, but you have less green space, less opportunity to use it as a linear park. Still gives us room for that trail and trees, though. Option B will reduce noise vibration to the adjacent residential area, but of course not as much as option A. And because we're adding that extra lane of traffic, it costs a little bit more. It is a disadvantage. You will have higher speeds as a disadvantage, and traffic moves a little bit closer, that 12 foot closer to the homes as a disadvantage. All these will be on that survey, by the way, and available on our website. This is the cross-section available over here. Again, this is very similar to option A, except we add, you see there's 4 vehicles there, 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction. Slightly smaller buffer. Okay, option C is our kind of a hybrid with the current option. Right now, remember, we got this big, wide 66 or 60-foot wide median. This is keeping the median, but it's still taking the roadway, shoving it as far to the south as we can. Because we're adding that green space in the median, our buffer gets smaller still than either option A or B. But it's giving 2 lanes, kind of like we have now, on either side of the median, but the median would only be 13, 14 foot wide. So it's going from 60 foot wide to our normal, what you see like on Town East Boulevard, which is a 13 foot wide grassed area. If you count the curbs, it's 14 foot wide. This drops our buffer down to 51.5 feet. So option A, 77.5. We go to 65.5 on option B. This drops it even further to 51.5 foot buffer. There is still room. It still gives a lot of grass area. Still gives us room for that winding trail, some planting of trees. Option C has some reduction of noise and vibration to the residential neighborhood, but again, not quite as much as option A or B. So really, they're all kind of good options, depending on what you want to do out there. The last 3 options all increase the buffer between the residential and the roadway. It's just the matter of degree of the buffer out there. Again, with this option, just kind of like what we have now, since you have that median, we expect speeds to be pushing 40 miles per hour, maybe more than that, like we're currently experiencing. So it's not designed to slow down traffic. That's a disadvantage. And of course, this is the highest cost option out of any of them. And this is kind of that cross section. By the way, all these cross sections and displays that you're seeing here tonight are available in PDF on our website as well. So send your neighbors to those. We're going to start our public input process. We have 4 options, but they're all very similar and have pros and cons. I kind of ran through them pretty quickly. But we'd like to have people up here, kind of the same process as before. Corey, if you could help me with this. We would like you to state your name and address. Just for the record, you're being filmed. And speak clearly into the mic if you can, and we'll try and answer any questions you have and certainly record your opinions. Try and keep your comments on the Skyline Road project as much as possible, and what we're trying to do, and express your opinion on which of the options are important to you, and we'll try and get to all of you if we can. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Shelley Kubasumi, 2907 Potomac. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, when you're making that trail, right now it's a trail to nowhere. Are you going to hook that trail up with the Town East and then also make some type of walkway that hooks to the park park and the parkway so that it becomes a trail that you can, I'm a walker, and I don't like to just stop and have to turn around. I would prefer it be continuous. Are you planning on doing that?
Yes, we are, ma'am.
Okay.
The city actually has a master trail plan that's on the Park Department website. All these things, we're kind of building it bits and pieces, but it's part of a master plan. As we talked about on the Town East Boulevard one, that one option that we presented would build a trail all the way down to Forney, and then along that Forney Park, it would connect into the parking lot there, and that eventually feeds into the trails, that are along South Parkway and things of that nature. Also to the south on Town East Boulevard, we're reconstructing that right now. Once the roadway project's done, we're actually going to bid another project. We've got actually a state grant to build a trail on that segment of Town East, 12-foot wide, all the way from Skyline down to Military. And there's actually a 12-foot trail under construction right now as we speak on Military Parkway from Sam Houston Road all the way to LBJ. And our county friends are partnering with us to take a trail from LBJ all the way into our downtown area. So we're going to have some massive trail, and fortunately, most of these trails are being built with grants. The one on Military Parkway that's under construction is a grant funded. I think it's an 80-20 split on that. Only 20% of the money is city money. 80% is state and federal money. The section that the county is partnering with us that's under design from LBJ Freeway into the downtown area, that's a 50-50 split with Dallas County. They've been very generous in helping us with that as well. And the Town East one that we'll bid after the project is, again, another grant. So we're trying to build connectivity and trails so you can get all over the city eventually on a trail system, ma'am.
Speaking of connectivity, there is a bridge down here that's been out for over a year. Could we connect?
It is under design. Matter of fact, we had a meeting yesterday on CIP.
And how long till it's under construction?
We think about 3 months or so. We're nearing, we got 60% plans. We're trying to expedite that bridge.
And may we hold you to that? After a year?
You've got my card.
Okay.
Our Director of Parks and Recreation gets calls on that all the time, and she has not let me forget it.
Okay.
And she's doing her job, and we're pushing the consultant as much as we can to get that one under construction. I'm a walker too. I'm a Boy Scout guy, and I love walking, so I feel your pain, and we want to make that connectivity. We want to get that bridge back.
I have one other question
Yes,
very
ma'am.
quickly. When you build walls, the walls, which I think is a great idea, but it tends to attract graffiti. Do you have a program that makes sure that that's taken care of in case that happens? I mean, I hope it doesn't, but I'm just, kids will be kids.
Our street department and our parks department, they react to graffiti as soon as they are notified of it, especially if it's like gang-related type stuff. These walls, what we find is the graffiti artists, they like a flat palette, okay? So brick screening walls, they actually like to hit more than these concrete ones that we're building because they have a lot of texture to it. The patterns with the bricks and the stones, it's very lumpy, so to speak, and it doesn't make a good canvas for the graffiti artists. So the walls that we've actually erected so far, we've had 0 graffiti on those walls so far. So we do take that into account when we design these things. We try and find a rock or a stone pattern or a brick pattern that has the maximum amount of relief so that the graffiti artists it's unattractive to them and they move on to something else that's flatter that will accommodate their art. Okay?
Thank you.
Charlie Baker, 1713 Huntington, 75149. And I was just curious about the cost of the median. What's the yearly cost of maintaining that? That's going to be a yearly cost, right?
Medians have obviously a cost. Anything that's grass has to be mowed. Something this wide has got to be mowed. The amount of grass really doesn't change that much because we're just adding that one lane on the 4-lane options, which would be option B and C, or option D, which is the current thing. So the mowing's not going to change a lot. I don't handle the mowing contracts, but there obviously is a cost of mowing any grass that's out there. It goes, really the big thing with the extra wide buffer area on the 3-lane option, option A, there's a little bit more grass out there, roughly 12 foot versus its current configuration or any of the other options B or C. So it does add a little bit, probably not more than an acre, I don't think.
It just seemed like to me that instead of grass, concrete would be so much better because we could have a turn lane there in the center with 2 lanes on either side, getting us going and coming and going where we're needing to be, rather than adding something that has to be maintenanced.
Concrete's got to be maintained too, sir.
Other than pouring it? I mean, you're pouring 13-inch concrete, you said. So
Right.
what are we going to maintenance it then? We're going to pressure wash it or what?
I do have to stripe it and things like that, put buttons down, and
That's
so
kind of
there is a
normal
cost.
maintenance I mean, we're talking about when you put greenery there, that's a weekly maintenance. It'll get
Sure,
mowed more
it
than the
does.
stuff behind my house does.
Yes. I understand,
So,
sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm,
There's certainly a maintenance cost associated.
Right.
Totally understood.
so there is an ongoing expense there.
Sure,
that adds to
absolutely.
the city budget, or,
No question, sir.
okay.
I'm Greg Williams, 2426 South Parkway. Lived here 32 years, watched my house go up, and the whole so much of the whole neighborhood. I don't use Skyline very often. I just don't travel that way a whole lot. But over the years, I certainly have, and the traffic seems minimal. I know
Yes.
people that live around that area are using it certainly more often than I do. But to put the expense or the money into such I would consider it a minimally used road, not so much traffic like Town East that really requires some maintenance like this. It seems like there's so many other areas in Mesquite that could use this repairs, maintenance, rather than Skyline. I don't know.
No comment.
I mean, it just seems like there are so many other areas in Mesquite. I mean, that instead of one big project like this, there are areas all around that could use that kind of funding. And maybe be a little more common with some maintenance on it, perhaps. But to reconstruct it so much, I'm just wondering, could the money be utilized elsewhere a little more effectively?
I understand your comment. Yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm Gary Hudson, live over at 3000 Falls Church Lane.
Okay.
Kind of glad I'm talking after him. 'Cause no, I got a couple of comments. I want to thank y'all. This has been very informative, especially to me. I had a whole list of questions, and a lot of them got answered.
Great.
I do have a couple of questions. I haven't seen anything on, the street lights that are on either project. Are those going back with the new project, or?
Definitely. Our intention is to replant trees and to re-erect streetlights. We're actually upgrading the look of the streetlights. Most of our new projects come back with it's kind of a powder-coated square pole with what we call box lights on top. We've been putting those in on all our new projects, and it's our intention to do that with Town East and Skyline. Now, Skyline, we'd have to look at it, because if we put that trail, if we chose one of the options with a trail, either A, B, or C, we'd have to probably have lighting along the trail as well as the roadway. So we'd have to kind of have a hybrid, but we certainly would come back with lighting, sir.
So you're looking at pedestrian lights too? if you
Yes,
go-
sir.
Okay.
If we put a big, if we have that much buffer
Right.
and a trail that meanders through there, it would be wise to add lighting along that as well.
Okay. I did not see a timeline for Skyline. What
Let
are
me
we
talk
looking at?
about timeline. Some funding has been identified. There's actually kind of a tax increment finance district that's kind of been put over that area. We're allocating money out of that district for the reconstruction of this roadway. And it looks like we're getting an infusion of money in 2019. It's a year away. We would start design in 2019 with that first infusion of money. In 2020, we think we could probably bid the project towards the end of that and go to construction in 2021. So it's about a year, year and a half behind the Town East Boulevard project. Because it's the same neighborhood as well, we would want to finish the Town East Boulevard project before we launched on the Skyline, so people had a way to get out of the neighborhood, in and out of the neighborhood. We would not want both projects overlapping or being pursued simultaneously. So we would have to finish Town East before we started the Skyline. So we're talking about a year and a half behind the Skyline schedule, sir.
Okay. And just one more quick comment.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate the A through C options due to the fact that for us residents that are leaving, come out right now, we have to be very careful because we get a lot of wrong way drivers. And the way way those, the screening bushes are now, our visibility is real limited.
Real limited.
Yeah.
So pushing the roadway away from
Yes.
you would help a lot with that.
We appreciate that.
Got that.
All right, thank you.
Very good, sir.
Afternoon. My name's James Blackshear. I live at 2200 Camp David. Been there since '91. Was on Spiceberry prior to that. I just had a couple of general questions. It has to do with the impact, traffic impact. We're discussing Skyline. I'm not sure how that happens. Is it a complete shutdown? Is it a partial shutdown when you do Skyline? And based on the answer to that, you're going to have traffic backing up on Town East regardless of whether it's new or not, and on South Parkway. And earlier when we were talking about Town East, you said when the lady asked about the park, well, there's not a lot of traffic on Forney. There will be a lot of traffic on Forney once you begin this work. So I think it would be good to maybe go back, reevaluate just a little bit, even though this is not a part of your project and it's more the bond package stuff. Forney Road, South Parkway, they're all going to be, I'm going to say, negatively impacted to a certain degree from traffic flow. As people back up on Town East trying to get to their home, they're not going to be able to use Skyline. And that's including the 18-wheelers. What are they going to do, and how are they going to come in? And are there any discussions that you guys have with the corporations and businesses that are almost completely surrounding us as to how those 18-wheelers are going to get in during this time? Or is it just, as you said earlier, well, they've got the roads too? Because if you went ahead right now and just closed down South Parkway and made it a three-lane road too, we would be completely enclosed by 18-wheelers. Completely. So people have frustration in this room. We love the progress. We like the fact that you're here and you're listening. But there will be more frustration when this process begins. And again, I don't know if Skyline will be completely closed, probably not.
No.
But that's still going to impact traffic both directions coming from Town East, from Peachtree, if Skyline's going to be impacted. And then they're going to start funneling through South Parkway and Forney Road and going through the neighborhoods. And that includes 18-wheelers too. And that's why South Parkway is like the Santa Fe Trail right now.
It's in pretty bad shape.
It's in horrendous shape. I hate to even get out on it and drive. It's so bad. If you come off a Gross Road and you go down Peachtree and take a ride on South Parkway, you're taking your life in your hand almost. You've got to get in the middle lane for about 100 yards before you get there, and then you can turn, because it's split and it's sinking. And it's all these 18-wheelers that have completely enclosed us. So anyway, I was curious about the construction of Skyline, if it happens all at once. Evidently it doesn't, but I think you ought to reconsider the impact that you're having on the neighborhood, although all this is good, and some caveats about these 18-wheelers, and do you discuss with them ingress and egress and how they get in and out, or is it just ad hoc and they can do what they want? Thank you.
We certainly can add construction signage during the course of construction that clearly marks the entrances into the residential area, no trucks allowed. I mean, we can do that.
Well, they are there already.
And then it's an enforcement issue, but we can put the signs up. Now, as I mentioned, Skyline doesn't actually have a tremendous amount of traffic on it today. It's around 4,200, I think I said 4,200 vehicles per day. So it's relatively light. I have residential streets. I bet you South Parkway has that same amount of traffic, but it's only got 2 lanes, okay? Our intention is we would put traffic on one side of the roadway. We may have to add asphalt in places to widen it out for turn movements and things of that nature, but we'd put all the traffic probably closest to the commercial property, the industrial property on the south, build a section kind of north, and we'd have to kind of phase the project and figure out what we're going to, well, thinking about, we'd have to probably put the traffic on the north side, build the south, and then flop traffic onto the new pavement and tear out the old pavement. So we would phase it so that there would be continuous access for all those businesses. Skyline would never be shut down, just like we're doing on Town East Boulevard to the south of Skyline right now. We're keeping it open, but there is phasing. There's certainly inconvenience, sir. There's no construction project ever done that doesn't inconvenience somebody, but we would do whatever we could to mitigate the impacts to the neighborhood. Like you said, it's not to our interest to have South Parkway get any worse than it currently is, nor the streets within the neighborhood. So we would take proactive steps to mitigate and do what we could to prevent that from occurring. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name's David Moskowitz. I live at 3144 Wichita Drive. We've been there 30 years. I'm in a unique situation. I live on Skyline. I work on Skyline. I work down in the warehouses, the big white buildings down there that everybody talks about. So I'm very well aware of traffic. Where we live, when the trailers come down, our headboard bounces, the frames on the wall, they all shake, and we hear every truck. So I'm very encouraged about the city of Mesquite being so proactive and looking out. Is it 40 years? Was that what your plan is, or 2040?
2040 is what we're projecting. Basically, we look at all the traffic would be, all the land would be built out at 2040, and what would that traffic volume be at that point?
There's been some great comments, both pro and con. I want to tell you, I am encouraged and excited to see this happen. I think our property values will go up, our condition of life will be better. I know I'll sleep a hell of a lot better than I do right now. So I just wanted to commend you all on the progress. All of these plans are admirable. I drive that 4 times a day, and I know exactly what the traffic is, and we're going to be in great shape. We're going to be in better shape than we were with either of these programs. Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you, sir.
My name is Noé Villarreal. I'm at 3501 Dublin Trail. I would like to put in my proposal. Have you thought of 5 lanes?
That's not one of the options we've looked at, no, sir.
If you put a 3rd lane on the side of the neighborhood so where they can make a right turn, it would be a lot safer for us to get in blind spots and so on and so forth. Or at the very minimum, consider right turn acceleration lanes to consider the safety of our neighborhoods, residential people, because those are the ones you're serving. And the last thing I would like is to have a 4-lane, 2-direction road with blind sides and us trying to go across when the traffic volume increases. if you consider 3 lanes going on Town East towards 80, we're in a hurry to get into work because we're running late. We're not in a hurry to getting back in. If you're in Skyline, obviously we have those blind spots. Again, considering making a right turn, having that extra lane would be a great safety factor consideration into this. Again, think about the neighborhood. It's impacting us, and that 3rd lane would be well worth saving at least 1 life.
If you look at option A, the long strip there, it's the one down below the top, kind of the second from the top. We do have, on that 3-lane option, we have right turn lanes to get into both the major streets into the neighborhood as well as into the industrial buildings. So it does help with that flow of traffic tremendously. And that suggestion that you just have, we're implementing it on that particular option, option A.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Kathy Colgrove, and I live at 2402 Monticello Drive. So our house is the back house. That's that alley.
So you're right up against
right
it.
up the skyline. Sometimes I can't tell if it's a huge thunderstorm or just another truck coming by, because like the gentleman says, the windows shake, everything shakes when some of those 18-wheelers go by. But I'm really concerned about the cut-through traffic when this happens, because we frequently are in the neighborhood over us of Gus Thomason and Oates, and those streets are not as wide as ours are, which we're fortunate in that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going 40 miles an hour down those little bitty streets with cars on both sides, and there's barely one pathway getting through. Have you considered that, at least when this kind of thing, and you're considering that you're going to have all this cut through, that you put some big speed bumps, not the high ones, but the wide ones, that forces people to slow down? We have kids all over the neighborhood, and I'm surprised that we haven't had several kids in that neighborhood run over, because they're there, and you go by and you're like, watch it, there's a kid over there.
We've not considered speed bumps as a temporary measure on roadways because of construction projects. Typically, we do put speed bumps in alleys because speeds are low. The speed limit in an alley is 15 miles per hour. However, speed bumps in residential or larger streets, generally as a rule, we don't put those in, and the reason for that is liability, because if people hit those at speed, particularly things like motorcycles or bicycles, people often take spills, get injured, and there's been even deaths. And cities have lost lawsuits related to speed bumps and people actually instead of being a safety feature, it actually has caused injuries on many occasions.
Well, Plano, I know, has them across 6-lane roads, 3 and 4 lanes each side. And they have the wide 2-foot wide ones. They're not the really high ones. But
we can certainly revisit that and see if that's an option, especially on a temporary measure for traffic control during a project. Thank you. Great suggestion.
Chris Gervin, 1412 Hermitage Street, it's right down the street. A couple questions. First of all, thank you for coming out. I really like these proposals. I think it's long overdue, and I definitely want to thank you guys for involving us in this.
We enjoy it, actually.
So, second question is, with regard to the traffic on South Parkway and Civil, you start construction on Skyline, you're going to have these 18-wheelers cut through the neighborhood. They're doing it right now. Civil's right here. They're doing it right now. Because if you go on Civil and they're exiting out, they're going straight across. They're not making a turn or anything, going straight across. So take that.
We can look into that.
Look into that. And then right behind the new warehouses that they're building, there's an actual street.
There's a what?
There's an actual street behind those warehouses that they're building. And it pulled out into Peachtree. I'm looking at the map right now. So the only way that road right there is cut off through the big property on the corner. But there's the actual street right there. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right
Get with me right after this, and we
Yeah,
can
that's fine.
discuss that.
But there's these warehouses that they built actually created a mini street.
Right, there is circulation drives within that complex of 4 buildings over
Yeah.
there. The third
So-
one's underway right now.
What I'm proposing, and you can disregard this, but is there a way to go on the property on the corner to build a road around it, to have the 18-wheelers go around it to get to where they need to, instead of coming up on Skyline?
Let's look into that.
Okay.
I know the big building that's vacant on the corner of Town East and Skyline. At one point, they were marketing that as a potential data center.
Right.
Data centers, they have security, like bank-like security because of all the information in there. And so getting traffic through a facility like that, if it did develop as a data center, is unlikely. But
Well, I mean, the access into that center is fine. They have adequate parking, but there's a lot of greenage behind it, and it's right
Yes.
across that railroad track.
Right, it's right next to the railroad track. Absolutely.
Just an option.
Interesting suggestion, sir. We'll definitely look at it.
Ron Heron, live at 2909 Yorktown, been there since 1985. Matthew, do you intend to resurface Skyline while you're building Town East and resurface that road with asphalt or something to smooth it out? And because we're going to have to wait 2 years, it looks like.
We can look at doing some improvements, again, trying to.
Not what you're doing right now, because that's not worth a damn. Okay? I could put down asphalt better than what these guys are doing, okay? And I don't even know how to do it.
We'll definitely take that into account, sir.
Yeah,
It's.
And the other thing, we talk about traffic on Skyline, is there a long-range plan to extend that down there to the creek, to the bridge of nowhere? And if you're intending to build apartments down there, this bunch is going to vote everybody out of office.
Right now, it's basically zone medical and office, that type of use. We haven't had a site plan. We've seen some concept plans, and matter of fact, they approached council about a month or two ago, asking for basically an extension of the current development agreement that we have as a city with that developer. Project's still alive. It kind of went defunct during the crash, but it seems to have some wind in its sails right now and seems to be new life being breathed into it. The plan that we've seen kind of conceptually looks pretty good. I believe it does include a road, basically extension of Peachtree. I honestly can't remember, but if you leave me your name or number, we can look up and see what that concept plan has and get that information to you, sir.
I thank you for your patience.
No apartments. There's no. Yeah, it's all medical. It's no apartments. Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth Anderson, 2514 Monticello, been there since 77.
Wow.
Behind my property backs up the alley, and the alley between Springbrook and Sybil is very narrow. And any plans to widen that alley in that part so I don't back into that screening wall when I get out of my driveway?
Well, probably, we've had that kind of same issue where people backing out of their drives, when we install a screening wall, it makes it very difficult. If we go with one of the wider buffer, which is basically option A, B, or C, we can certainly slide that screening wall a little bit further out than what it is now, so that your rear bumper doesn't bang into it as you back out of your drive. We've had that issue. It is a design issue. If we chose any of the buffer options, which are 3 of the 4 options, we'd have the room to do that.
Yeah, I need a wider alley.
Okay.
If you're going to have a screening wall. Thank you. Thank you
You
for the
bet,
work
ma'am.
you've done.
Thanks for attending.
Good evening, sir. My name is Benny Zentek. I live at 3009 Yorktown Road. I have a question. I know you touched on the trails and stuff. Are we going to be inundated with these bicycles that they have around Dallas that they have such a problem with?
Cliff, you might want to address, I know we've seen what's going on in other cities.
Right.
And I think the city management staff is actually taking steps to make sure that doesn't occur here. They're already had some discussions with them.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
I have noticed them in my neighborhood that they're starting to show up. They're migrating from Dallas, but
Right.
we are trying to be proactive before they become a blight in the city to take care of that.
I'm Mrs. Zentek. I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any company or business specific that you're trying to cater to that's going to come here that is causing all this? Or is it just
Causing all what?
all these upgrades?
No, the roads are just in bad shape, ma'am. And certainly it will help attract business and retain business, but these roadway improvements are not tied to any business development agreement or anything like that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Mark Moss, 2308 Monticello Drive. I've been here 12 years. So I like all those plans, but I went on record that I said this. Only on Sybil is there a right turn lane into the neighborhood. And I feel like whatever the design is, all of those need to have a right turn lane. I like the 3-lane option because it pushes it farther away. I really like that a lot, but not without those turn lanes on Springbrook, and all those roads need that.
We could certainly look at that. Again, it'd be fairly easy to implement, very easy to implement, sir.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
No problem. That's our job, sir.
My name is Leo Cantu, 1313 Farley Drive. Since it's near the end, if I could ask, the southern part between Military and Skyline, will that be completed before the northern part is commenced?
Absolutely. Again, we don't want to have any projects overlap each other. It's just a big mess and a headache for us. So we certainly want to finish the section that's currently under construction south of Skyline all the way to Military before we kick off construction on the northern half. And I don't think there'll be any problem achieving that either.
Okay. Any idea how long that will take for the southern part to be finished?
Corey, what's our schedule on that? I think September, November of this year. So that'd be about the time we're bidding the new section that we're discussing here. So we should be finished completely with the southern section, with the exception of the trail. We are going to be bidding the 12-foot trail that's going to be on the, let me get this right, east side of the roadway. That grant project we mentioned, that's being built separately from the actual roadway. So we'll kick that one off, but that, again, it's a trail. It's not going to impact the traffic.
Okay. And whichever option is decided for either of these two that you presented, how will it ultimately be decided? By the votes of the people here or some other way?
That's council. Ultimately, city council decides what option is going to be pursued and give instruction to staff. And so it's up to them to kind of take the information they've gathered tonight, the information we'll gather from the surveys, we'll present them with that information, statistical breakout of that and the various comments that we collect. And it's up to them to weigh those comments and deliberate and come to a decision. So I don't think there's any formula other than the democratic process that the city council will pursue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Before we end tonight, I just want to ask again for a round of applause for Matt Holzaffel and the entire engineering team. Thank you for all your effort tonight. This is several months' worth of effort to try to discuss options and working with our consultants. So there was a lot of thought put into this and a lot put into the presentation tonight. We will stick around as long as you need us to, or until the school kicks us out. Then we can go talk in the parking lot. But again, we're here to answer your questions. Please do not leave without an unanswered question. We'll try to keep it to the projects at hand. If there's something we can discuss later, we'll pass out our business cards. We're glad to talk about all of the great things going on in the city. I want to thank our city council for their support tonight. Thank you for being here. And again, please fill out your survey before you leave, or mail it in, or go online. Spread the word to your neighbors. We need input, and the council needs to hear from the citizens before the decision's made. Again, thank you for being here tonight.